So one of the things too that you need to be aware of is your brush is going to get gloppy, meaning that the paint is drying so quickly that it's also going to dry on your brush. So make sure, you can hear me, I'm cleaning my brush out. You know, make sure that you get it good and dry. Kind of get the points back again. Sometimes with these smaller brushes, they start getting splayed out with denim. So this is how it's coming along so far, and I'm pretty pleased. The stuff here, of course, it's drying out very quickly, except for the stuff where I actually put fabric medium in it. So I think what I'm going to try to do is probably get rid of the stuff that I have because it is truly almost dried out. And then I'm going to come back in and mix up batches of the blend with fabric medium in it because it's just too thick to work with, and it's just drying out way too fast. And the only thing that's staying actually pretty decent is the orange yellow mix, and I'm very happy with that. So I think just word to the wise that you may want to also try to do that as well. Now, the one thing I'm going to do next, and I'll do it on this particular blossom, is I do want to show you how, if you get really completely frustrated with this, how we can do some of the base coloring with acrylic markers. You know, the whole point of this block was to teach you how to use paints. And, you know, if you had all the money in the world, you can go out and you can buy all sorts of different acrylic paints, and you could probably do this. One of my students who's been taking classes from me for about 4 or 5 years, she did this owl. She had her own acrylic paints. She did, of course, say that it took her a full solid day to get this done, but she felt like not having access to the Speedball Flex paint was actually worked to her benefit, since she didn't have to deal with the paint constantly drying out. So I'm going to switch over now and use the acrylic markers, and I'll be right back to show you how that's going. Okay, as you can see, I've got a bunch of my markers out here. The very first thing I want to show you, I'm going to use this to kind of put in some highlights. And let me see if I can zoom in here. Let's see. Let me bring this over just slightly. There we go. Let me do this one more time. So in some of these areas, there's these tiny little dots, which really, there's just a paintbrush is going to be silly to try to do that. In the other areas, it's where, of course, as we have already discovered using coloring with denim, that there's still like little gaps because of the weave. So I'm using this dark orange to kind of come in and put some more color down where some of those gaps are. And I think, as you can see, it's actually working pretty darn well. This may be something that I do in class as a way to help people get past this point. Now, some of the colors are a little off, but I think once they dry, they'll deepen up. Like for instance, over here, I'm gonna grab this lighter orange and come in here and put a little bit of that right here. Oh yeah, that makes a huge difference, and maybe just a little bit more in here. Now, some of the areas are still wet. It probably doesn't matter unless you find you're pulling paint off from your work and it's sitting on your brush. You will need to make sure to clean those off really well. But I think you can see that this is doing a great job of adding some of those highlights that you may not be able to get with your brush. So that's actually working pretty good. Again, will you have to go over things? Yep. I don't think there's any good way to get around that. Yes, you're going to cover up the black. Now I want to just show you something here real quick. We're going to work with some of these outer colors here right now, and I'm going to bring over Let me see what this one looks like as far as, oh, good tip. So we're in here and I'm going to come in and just place the color down. Now I can assure you that that will darken up pretty darn fast. And if worse comes to worse, what you're doing is at least putting a base coat down. We'll put a tiny bit right there. Maybe go over some of these others where the yellow isn't quite covered. Now you may decide, and it's perfectly acceptable, to color the whole thing with acrylic markers. Please be my guest. You know, I have come to develop quite a respect for these markers. They do a great job of helping to blend. Let's just do a little blending right there, maybe like a little there. And you may find that this is an easier way for you to come in and get things colored and not get so far out of the lines. And I would agree with you. So bear this in mind while you're working. If you would prefer, you know, go ahead and grab your markers. Now I want to point something out though. If you'll notice, these areas that I just did with markers, you know, they've dulled down substantially. And so what you could do is just use these to kind of put a base coat down and then come back over and use the paint to kind of give you a little bit more color. So let's grab that dark orange one again. And I'm just going to come in here and put some darker color down here. So these are probably the answer. In fact, some of this should be really dark red, and I may have to find a darker color. I don't know that this particular set that I have has a darker color. If yours does, great. You probably are going to want to deepen some of these, like right there. That should actually be probably a much deeper orange. Might be where you can come in and bring some of the more fuchsia colored mix into that. But get the color down first and then decide once you've kind of colored this. So that's it. So I'm going to let you make that judgment call. It certainly does take some of the blending work out of it, but I'll also say that there's just not as many colors. So the blending that you can get, and again, let me switch back over to the paint. The blending, and I'm going to see if I can bring this in. I can't see it on film. Again, just keep moving this around so I can get this into the picture. So by taking maybe some of the, again, this fuchsia, I'm gonna just put it down here in the bottom, and then a big old glob of the orange, kind of like one fuchsia, two orange. You know, I'm actually, wow, I can already feel that's really super thick. So let's grab some fabric medium real quick here, a couple of drops. Get that good and dark. Probably need a tiny bit more fuchsia just to really darken that orange up. Make it almost like a mid-vermilion. Okay, that's pretty dark. Let's see what this looks like. Paint it on. Yeah, it's got a definite more of a red tinge to it, which is what I was shooting for. But again, it's very thick. But it really looks good when you're trying to create a shadow, and none of these will do that for you. So that's about it. Again, the petals are really just blending the light to dark colors together. So I'm going to come in here and put that here. Really needs it just again to blend up into that lighter orange. So you'll really want to just keep working this. I apologize that it is not the easiest thing in the world to work with, but I think once you master this, small brushes work better. Even as small as this brush is, I would consider going smaller. And again, don't hesitate to use your markers to kind of go in and fill spots that may be coming through on the weave of the denim. All right, stay tuned for more. Okay, the flower's done. And so this is what it looks like before I come in and do all of the finishing work on the black. Now, I'm going to be frank with you. You can see plenty of denim in there. I'm going to tell you the black will probably take care of most of that. If it doesn't, then you really are going to want to fall back onto your pins. And I'm going to try this. I don't know if this is really going to work or not. Nope, it's a little bit too light. I was going to try a brown to see if a brown might bring in some of that, but it just simply is not going to. So just stick with your colors that you have here. If you in fact do have a set, if you don't, let me recommend that you can go on to Amazon and look for acrylic markers. There's a bazillion of them out there. I'm just coming in and putting a few more highlights in some of my lighter areas so that the blossoms towards the center should be lighter. And then everything as it moves out should be darker. So I see some areas where I want just a little bit more of that light contrast, just so that the center just doesn't start looking all the same color. It's just a fact. This is just working on denim, number one, and number two, using this type of paints. But I won't shy away from them. I'll be frank with you. The colors are so vibrant, and you will not see very many other acrylic paints out there that have kind of this really nice, vibrant colors like these Flex Speedball paint colors do. And by the way, just to let you know, those colors happen to be canary, mandarin, and fuchsia. So there you have it. Stay tuned. We'll move on to this next. And then the final, I mean, I have a couple of other things, but really the final is going to be showing you how to go ahead and finish up with the work on the black marker and then what to do going forward. Stay tuned. Okay, just want to point out here on this bottom flower that really the only thing I did different was a lot of the base petals were done with the fuchsia. Let me just drag this over ever so briefly, which is that color right there. Occasionally I mixed it a bit with the orange, but you can see that I tried to stay a little bit lighter with this one and go darker with this one, so at least there would be a contrast. But the thing that is just, again, the whole point of all this is you want to go from light, medium to dark. And as you move out away from the flower and it gets bigger, then the petals should get darker the further out they go. So that's it. Basically, I'm going to move these out of the way, then I'm going to zoom out so that you can see the entire owl. Should be just about everything. Let me just double check. There we go. So this is done. I mean, I do have to fill in these. And so, but basically all the coloring is done. Now the next thing will be is to come in and use the black marker for redrawing the lines, and just very quick, since I just happen to have one close by, and we can kind of take a look at this on the owl head and some of the leaves. So in particular right here, and by the way, I'm using a fine tip. I like a tip that's solid, not the brush. The brush has a tendency to wiggle too much. And you can see I'm just coming up here and making sure that the color is right as close onto the DTF as possible. You can see that as soon as I do that, it really drags some of the color out. Some of these completely got covered up, which is no biggie. As you can see, you just come in here and draw the ones out that you feel are necessary. Now, that's not to say that you can't leave some of them covered. It might be something that you would prefer. Personally, I like the very strong outlines. That's why I do most of these the way that I do them. But if you don't, that's not a problem. You can choose the look that you want without necessarily having to replicate what somebody else does. So there it gives you an idea of the head. Now down here on the leaves, you know, the leaves were some of the toughies. I do try to keep my pen tip as lightly on top as possible so that I can get just as fine a thin line. Now, if you have things like micron pens or something that has a smaller tip, by all means use it. I will tell you sometimes micron pens don't tend to work nearly as well on this metallic as the acrylic markers do. So just be judicious on what you decide to use, you know, and give it a test ahead of time. And there's a fairly number of black lines. You could inconspicuously test it without having it to be noticeable throughout your entire work. And that's it. So see, that looks, to me, I think that looks a whole lot better. It gives definition to what the original pattern looks like. But again, that is certainly personal preference. But the main thing here is just to see how I'm doing it and then come back in for yourself and do what you think is necessary. Now, after this is completely dry and after I've finished completely working on it, you know, I will end up heat setting it. Must always use a press cloth. I can't stress that enough. If you don't use a press cloth, it is possible to cause the DTF to curl up, particularly if you get your iron too hot. And that's not good. You don't want to put in all this work and effort only to have it ruined because you use too hot of an iron. So just word to the wise, make sure that you use a press cloth. In fact, even when you go, if you're doing this on the back of a denim shirt and you end up washing your shirt, you know, let me advise you, you want to turn it inside out. You will also want to, I like to wash these on cool. I think it just preserves the colors better, whether it's the color of the DTF or whether it's the coloring that you've already done on here. So there, that is kind of what it looks like with the lines redrawn. That's it. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.